Hey gang! Using the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, will get you 10% off any order over $10 at Flipside Gaming. It'll also get you 10% off any orders of singles at Multizone. And it'll get you 10% off most products at Original Magic Art, with the exceptions of some paintings. If these fine sites don't have what you're looking for, you can also consider using my affiliate link when ordering from TCG Player. And if you'd like to join the generic Goblin Gang to support this channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description below. Flipside Gaming is also going to be giving away a Mystery Booster Box, WPN edition. You can send a self-addressed stamp or postcard to Flipside Gaming, or use my promo code on an order of $10 or more to be entered to win. The giveaway will be running between February 27th, 2020 to March 13th, 2020. It's one entry per person, so I wish you all good luck. I've got another special game lined up for you today with two interesting caveats. First up, all of the commanders are monocolored. Secondly, all the commanders start with K. New to the channel, both as a player and as a commander, Bruno is bringing Kirin, keeping 4 planes, Crib Swap, Clean Fall, and a Waxmane Baku. Also new to the channel is Dylan, playing Syr Konrad, keeping Endless Atlas, 3 Swamps, Gorging Vulture, Bone Harvest, and Buried Alive. Mark is playing Kirin, keeping 3 Swamps, Cabal Stronghold, Dark Confidant, Grim Haruspex, and Reckless Spite. Lastly, I'm playing Krenko, keeping a Fire Diamond, 3 Snow-Covered Mountains, Umbral Mantle, Goblin Chieftain, and Ogre Battle Driver. Dylan wins the die roll and starts us off. Dylan plays a Swamp. Bruno plays a Plains. Mark plays a Swamp. I play a Snow-Covered Mountain. Dylan plays a Swamp and casts Endless Atlas. Bruno plays a Plains. Mark plays a Swamp, and he casts Mana Vault. He taps his remaining mana for 4, and then takes 6 damage to Phyrexian mana to cast his commander, Kirin, and passes. I play a Snow-Covered Mountain, and cast Fire Diamond. Dylan plays a Swamp, and casts Gorging Vulture. He mills himself for his top 4 cards, 2 of which are creatures, and he gains 2 life from the Vulture, and passes. Bruno plays a Plains, and passes. Mark loses 1 from the Vault, and plays a Swamp after drawing. He pays 1 mana and 2 life for a Dark Confidant, a bold move considering he's already done 9 damage to himself by turn 2. This gives his commander a +1/+1 counter, and Mark then casts Demonic Tutor normally, giving Kirin another counter. He goes to find a card, and then heads to combat. He hits me for 4 commander damage, and gains 4 life. I draw for turn, and cast paying 3 for a Goblin Warchief. I then pass to Dylan. Dylan drops a Swamp, and plays out a Bog Witch, which kinda makes any card into a Dark Ritual, which I think is pretty neat. Moving to combat, the Vulture hits Mark for 2. Bruno plays a Plains, and brings out Kirin, passing turn. Mark loses 1 in his upkeep to the Vault trigger, and then reveals Doth the Embrace to the Dark Confidant, losing a further 3 life. He then draws for turn, and Mark pays 2 mana for Lightning Greaves, putting them onto his commander. Heading to combat, Kirin goes at Dylan for 4, and Mark gains 4 life as he deals 4 commander damage. I draw and play a Snow-Covered Mountain. I then pay 4 mana for an Ogre Battle Driver and swing the Warchief at Mark for 2, who takes the hit. Dylan plays a Swamp and is worried about Bruno just blowing stuff up willy-nilly. He activates the Bog Witch, discarding a card to make 3 black mana, and he then taps the rest of his mana for an Arcana Revenant. He taps his last remaining Swamp to activate the Endless Atlas, and draws a card, and passes. Bruno plays a Plains, and swings Kirin at Dylan, who connects, and Bruno then passes. Mark loses 1 to his Mana Vault, and then reveals from the Dark Confidant. We see a Pestilence Demon, dealing a further 8 damage to Mark before he's even drawn a card for turn. Mark then plays a Cabal Stronghold, and brings out a Zulaport Cutthroat, which gives Kirin another +1/+1 counter. He then drops Doth the Embrace, giving Kirin another counter, and moving to combat, he swings his commander at Bruno. Bruno takes the hit for 6 commander damage, while Mark gains 6 life, and Mark then passes. I draw and cast Krenko's command to make 2 goblin tokens, who get pumped by the Ogre Battle Driver and gain haste. I then cast Krenko and tap him to make 4 more goblin tokens for a total of 6. They're all getting the +2/+0 in haste from the Ogre Battle Driver trigger, making them 3 1s. I swing 2 of the tokens at Bruno once Mark promises not to use the Pestilence Demon the turn it comes out to wipe my board, and Bruno takes 6. At the end of turn, Bruno casts Crib Swap on the Nurkana Revenant. This exiles the Revenant, and also because of the Kirin, blows up all the 3-costing permanents on the board. Dylan laments the sudden loss of his extra mana, and pays 3 to bring out a Merciless Executioner. We all sacrifice a creature, and with Mark losing the Dark Confidant, he drains all of his opponents for 1 with the Cutthroat and gains 1 life. Dylan then passes. Bruno plays a Plains and casts Forbidden Spirit. Mark untaps and still takes the 1 from his vault. He only draws 1 and then plays a Grim Haruspex, adding another counter to Kirin. He then pays 2 mana and 2 life to cast Reckless Spite, and this gives Kirin another counter. He takes out Krenko and the Ogre Battle Driver and loses 5 more life. He then swings his commander at me, who I chump with a Goblin token, and Mark gains 8 life and passes turn. I play Ruby Medallion in my main phase and cast Goblin Chieftain. This gives all of my goblins +1/+1 in haste, and I swing the 4 tokens at Mark. Mark blocks 1 with the Cutthroat and then takes 6. With the Cutthroat dying, he drains his opponents for 1 and gains 1. He also draws a card from the Haruspex. I pass, and Dylan draws a card at the end of my turn by activating his Endless Atlas. Dylan main phases a Corpse Churn, putting the top 3 cards of his library into his yard, and then puts a creature card back into his hand. He grabs the Nurkana Revenant, which we do catch later on, so don't worry. He then activates the Endless Atlas again, and passes. Bruno plays a Plains and casts Waxmane Baku. He plays an Idol on the Rhetoric, which gives the Baku a key counter, and Bruno then passes. Mark loses another 1 to his vault, and counts up his lands in his opponent's yards. He taps out, losing another 4 life to help pay for the black mana symbols of Hedonist Trove. The enchantment enters, and he exiles all of Dylan's graveyard, and then plays a swamp from the cards he exiled. The spell also gives Kirin another +1/+1 counter, and heading to combat, hoping to force a block, he swings it at me, but Krenko bows to no one, and I take the hit to the face like any real goblin would. Also, Mark gains 9 life. I play a Snow-Covered Mountain and recast Krenko. I tap Krenko again and make 6 more goblin tokens. I then do the only proper thing I should, which is swing all out at Mark. Before moving to blockers, Mark casts Cruel Feeding on his Grim Haruspex. He then blocks with the Haruspex, gaining 4 life, and then takes 18 unblocked damage. Mark also remembers to put his counter on Kirin, and then I pass to Dylan. Dylan's turn is quite quick, as he sees a good opportunity for a lot of damage with my tokens being out, and brings out Syr Konrad before passing. It's at this point that he realizes the Revenant should be exiled, and he corrects himself, exiling it, and putting another one of the creatures from his yard, aka what Mark had exiled, into his hand. Bruno casts Kirin, and gives his Waxmane Baku another key counter before passing turn. Mark loses another life to the Mana Vault, and in his main phase, activates the Stronghold and taps the rest of his mana to make 7. He has to pay 2 more life to cast the Pestilence Demon as a Rattlesnake card to keep me in check. This also gives Kirin another counter, and moving to combat, he swings his commander at Dylan. Dylan blocks to the token, and Mark gains 11. With Syr Konrad seeing the token dying, it deals 1 damage to all of Dylan's opponents. Mark then passes, strongly suggesting that if I want my goblins to live, to not attack him. I draw for turn and tap Krenko, bringing my token count up to 20. Now, I'm in a bit of a pickle. I can attack Mark to call his potential bluff, but that would probably kill us all since Syr Konrad is still out and we'll see the tokens dying. The alternative is to attack Dylan and remove him, taking out Syr Konrad, and hoping that Mark won't hose my board immediately with the Pestilence Demon. Mark reiterates once again, saying he'll give me 1 more attack phase without activating his Pestilence Demon as long as I go at Dylan. and I don't think I can do much better at this point. Dylan is probably the most frightening because if he has a board wipe in his hand, he can pretty much win the game on his turn, whereas Mark might have to work a bit more to win. Ultimately, I decided to swing the team at Dylan, who gets taken out. I then pass, and at the end of turn, Bruno casts Quiet Purity and takes out the Hedonist Trove. Not that it does much now, but it has the added benefit of also taking out Mark's Mana Vault. Plus, it adds another key counter to the Waxmane Baku. Bruno activates his Waxmane Baku, removing 2 key counters to tap down the Pestilence Demon and my Goblin Chieftain. He then swings his team at me, and I drop to 17. In his second main phase, Bruno casts Cleanfall, wiping out all enchantments, and also blowing up all 3-drops. We then see him cast a Prismatic Lens, and Bruno passes. At the end of turn, Mark loses 6 life to activate the Pestilence Demon, which deals 3 damage to each creature and each player. Responding to the final trigger from the Pestilence Demon, I cast Chaos Warp on Krenko, putting him into my command zone, and then shuffling to reveal something off the top. I'm looking for anything at this point, but sadly a treasonous ogre, who wants me to pay life for mana, ain't it. Mark draws, and plays another swamp. He casts Endling, gaining Kirin another +1/+1 counter. He then swings the Pestilence Demon at me, and Kirin at Bruno. We both have no choice, and take the hits, and Mark gains 12. At this point, it's a pretty simple matter for Mark to either pay mana or life to activate the Pestilence Demon, and take out Bruno and I. Game review time. So it seems like the last few times I played Krenko, I've been between a rock and a hard place. In this case, a Pestilence Demon or a Syr Konrad. It seemed like no matter what choice I made, I was pretty much dead either way, so at least I was able to go out swinging. I felt kinda bad for Bruno, cause he seemed to be drawing only lands for most of this game, and I was really excited to see what the Celestial Kirin could do. I'd heard some terrifying tales about it blowing up lands, but thankfully that didn't happen. It did seem like the few times where he cast a Spirit or an Arcane spell, the few cards that he did hit unfortunately were his own. I think the person who did the most damage to Mark was Mark himself in this game, and considering he must have taken upwards of 10 to 15 damage, he still seemed to be able to hover around 20 to 30 life at any given time. I think that just goes to show how powerful Kirin is, especially when your commander gets bigger the more black spells you cast, and he makes it easier for you to cast black spells, and then you're able to get the life back that you used to cast those black spells. He seems like a fantastically designed commander, and it's a shame I don't see him more often. I think Dylan unfortunately suffered from people being too afraid of his commander, and I think I was definitely part of that issue. I really didn't want him to board wipe and use my tokens to help win him the game, and it seemed like an easier thing to do was to take him out and then try and kill Mark later on. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.